Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for supporting me. Today's case is an absolutely tragic one. It's a fire that was confirmed to be set on purpose and it led to the death of 4 young girls. This is the Flora fire and the search for justice. Before I get into it, please subscribe to my channel if you like true crime. It really helps me out and you won't miss another video. Galen Rose was a single mother living in a 2-story house with her 4 daughters. Their names were Keyana, who was 11, Keyara, who was 9, Kerriele, who was 7, and Kionnie, who was 5. I've also seen her name pronounced Connie, but I'm going to say Kionnie because that's what most people have been saying, plus there's an I in it. The girls were well behaved and tried hard in school. They were also described as being very polite to adults. They were all enrolled in cheerleading, and this was definitely their passion. Passerbys said that basically anytime you drove past the house, the girls would be out front practicing their cheer routines, and they would always stop and wave to the drivers, which is so cute. The family lived in a house in downtown Flora, Indiana on Columbia Street, and this was a pretty well-trafficked area. On November 21st, 2016, Galen awoke to the smell of smoke and realized that her house was on fire. I think Galen slept on the first floor while the girls were upstairs, and this is how she was able to escape while the girls were trapped. Another thing that Galen points out is that the smoke alarm did not function properly and it was not going off during this. She thinks that if the smoke alarm had gone off, then maybe the situation would have turned out differently. She called 911 and Deputy Yoder was the first person on the scene. There's footage of him speaking to their mother and then attempting to run inside the house to grab the girls himself. For whatever reason, the fire truck had not arrived yet. Deputy Yoder was the first person on the scene as a police officer, and you see him struggling before, again, the fire truck has not arrived.
Where is it? Stay up. Is it upstairs? Hot. House. County. Send Cutler Fire as well. Get Cutler Fire in there as well. Yeah. Where are the kids? Upstairs? Where's the upstairs? Stay around the corner to the left. I can tell. County, send medics as well. Josh, you good? Josh, you good? I'm good. You good? I can't feel, man. I can't feel.
So after Yoder couldn't penetrate the smoke and flames, he physically got in his car and drove to the fire station, which took less than 30 seconds.
Hey, we need to roll, dude. There's people inside.
For the next 45 seconds, it sounds like Yoder is getting into his turnout gear. He then runs back to his car, races back to the scene with fire trucks just behind him.
Hey, they're coming. They're right here, dude. They're right here. They're coming.
Both Deputy Yoder and Officer Dysinger quickly put on air packs to re-enter the house. If you look here, you can see one of them entering, crawling on hands and knees. Just seconds later, something has gone wrong. At 3:45, an emergency call goes out. Officer down. Other firefighters are now working to rescue Yoder while still trying to reach the 4 girls. And as the fire starts moving more rapidly right to left, from the back of the house to the front door, an alarm sounds, signaling an air pack low on oxygen.
Yoder, I think, made it upstairs before passing out because the smoke was too heavy. An ambulance arrived at 4 a.m. and Galen's 4 daughters were pronounced dead. This was an extremely injurious fire, not just because of the 4 deaths, but Deputy Yoder actually had to spend several days in the hospital because of smoke inhalation and burns to his face and hands. Galen was also admitted to the hospital for similar injuries. One by one, responders had to carry the tiny bodies out of the house. All 4 girls had died of smoke inhalation in the early morning fire. I didn't realize this when I was first researching the case, but as I was writing notes, I realized Deputy Yoder knew the girls and Galen. He was one of the drivers that they would stop their cheer routines and wave at when he drove by the house, and Galen was a cashier at the local gas station. So as he was on his patrol, he would stop in and get his supplies, get gas, whatever, and he would have some small talk with Galen. In a town of just 2,000 people, this was an extremely tragic event, and the girls' funerals had to be held in the local high school gymnasium because so many people wanted to attend and mourn Galen's loss. Everyone at first thought this was a tragic accident. I mean, fires happen all the time because of faulty wiring or some other electrical issue. But 2 months later, the Indiana Department of Homeland Security came out and said that this was an arson. The fire was set on purpose. There was a lot of debate about this at first because there are 7 total organizations that were working on this case. And at first, people thought this was an accident, then they said it was an arson, and there was a lot of disagreement among those 7 organizations. But the final ruling is that this was an arson, it was set on purpose, and they found accelerants at one single point in the home. That was another thing that was up for debate. At first, it was reported that there were accelerants in multiple parts of the home, but instead it was just one spot. The place of the fire's origin inside the house is not public information because the police are hoping that whoever set this fire will know, of course, exactly where the fire started, and that is going to be information that's going to be crucial in finding the suspect and eventually convicting them. They want this to be private information that only the arsonist would know. One of the reasons that this fire was so deadly is because the house did not have properly functioning smoke alarms. The smoke alarm upstairs near the girls' room did not have batteries in it, and it had also melted from the heat. I'm not sure if this is normal for smoke alarms because it seems like they should be able to withstand a fire since that's their purpose. It wasn't until Galen smelled something that she got up and realized the severity of the situation. She has filed a lawsuit against her landlord because that is the landlord's responsibility. Whether or not the smoke alarms in your house or apartment have functioning batteries and whether they're working properly, that is your landlord's responsibility. And if you have a chirping fire alarm, they are supposed to go and replace the battery. Investigators haven't publicly stated any suspects in the Flora fire, and this fire occurred 6 years ago. So this community has gone without answers for 6 years, and another thing is that it's a small town. You'd think that someone would step forward and say, this person was acting strangely before or after the event, or this person seems to have an obsession with fire, but as far as we know, no one has named anybody. The charred home still stands on Columbia Street as a reminder of the tragic loss of Keyara, Keyana, Connie, and Kerriele. Their aunt Jacqueline Parto has said that the family hasn't heard from investigators in years. She's upset because early on in the investigation, they truly trusted law enforcement and thought that they would get answers, but instead it's 6 years and they're still wondering what happened, how it happened, and who did it. Flora is extremely close to another small town in Indiana, and that's Delphi, the site of one of the world's most famous unsolved mysteries. If you follow my account, you're probably into true crime, and you might recognize this bridge. Well, Flora, Indiana, and Delphi, Indiana are less than 10 miles away from each other. Abby Williams and Libby German were walking on the Monon High Bridge when they captured footage of someone walking behind them, and this case went viral. I'd say that if you're watching this channel, you probably know about the Delphi murders or the Snapchat murders. The Delphi murders happened just a month after the Flora fire was confirmed to be arson. So Jacqueline, the girl's great aunt, actually knows the families of Abby and Libby, and of course she says that she's thrilled that the case has finally made progress and there has been an arrest. I think we're on the way to getting answers and justice for Abby and Libby, but it's also really frustrating because her case hasn't received a fraction of the media coverage. I think there are a lot of reasons why the Delphi murders are so much more known than the Flora fire. First of all, there is that audio video element. So not only did they capture footage of someone walking behind them on the bridge, which has been determined to be the killer, they also captured his voice. I feel like having found footage always makes people more interested in a case, and then also I would be naive to not bring up the topic of race. So, not everyone is like this, but I feel like many people would see a photo of Abby and Libby and their heart would break knowing that their lives were taken from them so early. And those same people wouldn't really bat an eye knowing that these four young girls died in a fire that was set on purpose. Even though there's some potential discrimination in the discrepancy in the awareness of these two cases, there is a memorial bench that has the names of Keyana, Keyara, Kerriele, Kionnie, and Abby and Libby that sits in Flora as a reminder of the loss of both families. I also think that a huge obstacle in this case was the debate about whether or not the fire was arson. At first, people thought that it was an accident, and then 2 months later, it was confirmed that it was set on purpose. And I feel like the change up in information would maybe make it so that people still thought that it was an accident because they had read the old articles rather than realizing that this was a crime. Like, essentially, this is murder. I do have one positive detail in this case. The American Red Cross delivered 2,000 smoke alarms along with the tools to set them up to the Flora area. 1 year after the fire, the Red Cross went door to door asking people if they had a plan in place in case there was a house fire and also installing the proper smoke alarms that are going to function and save everyone's lives. But who randomly starts a fire like this? So this could have been done on purpose with the intent to kill, whether the target was Galen or one of the girls. So all four girls have different last names, which makes me think that maybe they have different fathers. This could have been a matter of getting out of paying child support. And people online have speculated that Galen did this to free herself from motherhood, but I really don't think that's the case. Galen was a very devoted mother, and she was absolutely destroyed that this has happened. Also, she risked her life trying to get them out, and that doesn't really match up if she did this on purpose. So some people like starting fires, and they're known as arsonists or pyromaniacs. The FBI released a report in 1987 profiling arsonists, and they said that they normally have a very low IQ between 70 or 90. Read. The report also said that half of arsons are committed by someone under the age of 18, and the other half is committed by someone under the age of 25. So arsonists are very young, and they're also almost always male. They tend to be loners with low impulse control, and they're also usually white. The house was in a well-trafficked area with people frequently driving by, so maybe they saw it and picked it as their target. Since the girls so often played outside in the front yard, it's also possible that they were the target. Like, this was a random attack, but it was specifically on them. Because, again, this is a town of 2,000 people. So I feel like people would know that four young girls live in this house, especially because they probably had toys laying on the lawn. The population of Flora is like less than 3% Black, I'm pretty sure. And there's also the element that this might have been a racially motivated attack. Maybe the person who set the fire is a white supremacist and they did it because the occupants were Black. I really wish that I had more information for you guys on this case, but it was really difficult to research because there's not that much media coverage. But of course, if I was going to do a video on Delphi, that could easily be over an hour long because there's so much available online. I didn't want this video to turn into a report on Delphi. I wanted to keep it focused on the four girls. So since Galen was a single mother of four children, her life has completely changed. If you have four kids, that is going to be a lot of your time during the day being taken up, taking care of them, driving them to cheerleading practice, and now it's just her. Living in Flora was too painful for Galen, so now she lives in another city, and she says that she works multiple jobs and she basically just keeps herself busy to avoid being depressed. If you live in the Flora area and you know anyone who might have committed this, please contact the Flora police. 6 years is far too long to go without answers in the deaths of four children, all under the age of 12. Arsons are notoriously difficult to solve because smoke and fire destroy evidence. Also, if you're setting a fire, you don't really have to touch that many things. And many people have speculated because Galen did say that the back door didn't have a proper lock on it. So it was just like constantly unlocked, which, like, this landlord sounds like they suck if that's true. Someone could have walked in and set the fire, or maybe they set it from outside. Again, the origin of the fire is kept a secret right now because they want that to be information in case someone comes forward and confesses. That's going to be one of the key questions they ask. And if they get it right, they'll know that this isn't a false confession. Once again, I'm putting a resource in the description if you know any information that could lead to the Flora fire being solved. Hopefully, one of these days, I'll be able to post an update. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel if you like true crime, and you can also find shorter true crime videos on my TikTok, which is at @CelestialSylvia. Until next time, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and stay safe.